Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Lionel Jonson is one of the Emperor's most enigmatic and formidable creations. Raised in the Death World forests of Caliban, the lion stands apart from his brother Primarchs as a warrior of unmatched tactical genius and ferocious close combat skill. The mysterious Primarch of the Dark Angels comes to Tacticus as the newest raid boss. In this video, I'll showcase him, break down his gameplay and abilities, and then show you how to craft teams and show you replays on how to succeed. If you're only here for the start and don't have the attention span for a longer video, then here are the two takeaways for you. As a Primarch, the Lion falls into the most difficult category of Snowprince raid bosses, and this boss is only really beatable with a Psyker team, so consider this fair warning if you want to start investing in that team. The Lion has many traits and unique abilities like all the other raid bosses. We've seen all of his traits before. He has the Immune, Big Target, Beast Slayer, Overwatch, and Parry traits. He has 3 active and 3 passive abilities, shown on screen, which I'll explain in more depth during the gameplay section. The Lion has a 3 hex profile and a base movement speed of 3. Tauan, Tacticus Ambassador and Friend, has plotted the Lion against other bosses. We've used Legendary 5 here as a baseline example. This graph shows how he compares to the other bosses in terms of armor, pre and post side boss kills. The Lion's armor at Legendary 5 is on the higher side of average and remains so even after the side bosses have been defeated. The Lion also has NPCs that fight alongside him. We've seen the Hellblasters before, and he'll summon Deathwing Terminators over the course of the battle, but we also have the addition of 2 Watchers in the Dark. The Watchers are a support unit that don't do any damage themselves, but are super annoying and are characterized by their 2 abilities. The first, Watched Over, essentially protects adjacent allies. I won't read the text out, but they protect against both psychic and non-psychic damage in different ways. The second, No Hiding from the Watchers, is where they become an annoyance. Basically, they can't be killed, and any damage they take is reduced to 0. When the Watchers are attacked, they move away, and this becomes relevant when we look at the abilities of the Lion. We'll start with his actives. The first is Instruments of Vengeance. The Lion makes this X shape on the battlefield and then enters Overwatch. At the start of his next turn, all enemies on the marked hexes take heavy round damage, and as if that wasn't enough, he also summons a squad of Deathwing Knights onto the battlefield that can immediately attack. The next active is Lion's Wrath. He deals power damage to an adjacent enemy and then taunts it for 1 round. At the beginning of the Lion's next turn, if the taunted unit is still adjacent, then the Lion does piercing damage. There's a bit of text here about 100% crit chance on the second hit, which I think just means that anything taunted is almost certainly going to die unless it has parry to prevent the second hit. Also, a fun and niche fact, a crit that kills a unit overkills it regardless of the damage the attack does. That just means your resilient units are not going to survive being taunted. The final active ability is Martial Exemplar. It is an area of effect power damage attack against all enemies that are adjacent to the Lion, and then he moves to the closest enemy and makes another normal attack. It has extra crit chance against summoned units to continue the trend of giving newer bosses an anti-summon defense mechanic. He seems to use this when he has a lot of units surrounding him. The first passive is Primarch of the First Legion, and it's a big part of what makes the Lion annoying. Half of the hits done against the Lion are spread to friendly Dark Angels. The added bits of text here are that units who soak up some damage in this way get their own damage boosted. Remember how I said the Watchers were annoying? Well, this is why. Half the hits from the Lion get sent to these Watchers, who then reduce that damage to 0. So before attacking the Lion, you have to make sure those Watchers move away, or it's going to feel like you're not really doing much during the course of the battle. The next passive is another boss-defining mechanic, and this one protects him against multi-hit melee characters. The Emperor's Shield says that every hit scored by a melee attack increases the Lion's block chance till the end of turn. As if blocking and reducing your damage wasn't enough, if the Lion blocks enough hits, then he does direct damage to the attacker, and as you can see in this clip, he comfortably kills Exeter Row. The final passive is the tamest of the bunch, Fealty. When the Lion does a normal attack, he also does a bit of splash damage to enemies adjacent to the target and himself. Let's put all this together to help understand which teams and characters we should be looking at. Regular channel viewers will broadly be familiar with these core teams. The Emperor's Shield passive almost certainly rules out the mechanical raid team, since Exeter Row will do almost a billion attacks each turn when he is triggered by your summons. It's also a softer exclusion for conventional multi-hit teams revolving around Ragnar, although that team isn't a huge part of the meta anyway. The big hit or Custodes team is okay on the surface, but does lose a bit of damage through the Emperor's Shield mechanic and also because of the Lion's parry trait. The Lion is generally pretty lethal in melee, which is fitting from a lore perspective, and discourages the melee-based nature of the Custodes team. The final nail in the coffin for the Custodes is that the summoned Deathwing Terminators have the big target trait, which means that Carrion's passive will often target them instead of the Lion. It might be fine if you significantly overstat the Lion, say you're bringing a maxed team versus a low legendary Lion, but I don't think you'll do well at parity with the boss. The Emperor's Shield also stops the Battlesuit team since they do so many melee hits. There might be hope for a ranged multi-hit team, but I think at that point you might be trying to force something rather than use an already competitive option. That probably just leaves the Psyker team, and in my testing they performed the best by far. They naturally work around all of the Lion's abilities, but you need to juggle the nuances of pushing the Watchers away before you attack, which can be hard with ranged characters. Also be mindful that the Terminators will hurt a lot, especially against your squishy characters if you don't kill them early. There are two side boss fights to go over briefly. As has been the trend for a while, the side bosses tend to mirror the playable versions of the character, but have an extra ability to make the fight more unique. For Baraqiel, the extra ability is called Hunt the Fallen. Baraqiel chooses one of your units. Preferentially, he chooses a Chaos unit and makes it a Fallen, or if you don't have a Chaos unit, then a random unit is chosen and it becomes Deathwing Quarry. Dark Angels do more damage to the target, whether it's Fallen or Quarry, and in return that same unit does bonus damage to Baraqiel, slightly more if it's a Fallen than a Quarry. All of your non-Fallen/Quarry units do 66% less damage to Baraqiel. The fight is pretty easy, truthfully, and I found it easiest to bring Karn and a supporting cast of 4 non-Chaos units. Karn is usually the best choice because he often attacks 3 times per turn, so triggers the passive extra damage the most often. If you don't have Karn, then perhaps Abaddon could be an alternative. The other side boss is Forcas, whose special ability is Redemption of the Risen. Each time one of Forcas's allies is defeated by one of your Chaos units, Forcas loses some health. Killing a Dark Angel puts Forcas and his allies into Overwatch, which wasn't a huge deal in my playtesting. You have to kill the Dark Angel's allies before Forcas, as while they are alive, Forcas takes 66% less damage. To be honest, I didn't really care too much about the Chaos Provisor in the ability here. I just killed the Dark Angel's allies and then used my team to finish off Forcas. I used the Battlesuit team because I love Tau, but lots of options are viable here. Killing the primes nets you the bonuses as shown on screen here. Feel free to pause or take notes if you would like. My usual advice for the majority of players is to fully kill both side bosses when fighting a new boss. The side bosses here aren't particularly hard either, in my humble opinion. Okay, so I've explained everything and hopefully it all makes sense. I'll close with a replay with the Psyker team against Legendary 4 Lion to give you some insight into how the team and fight plays out. I'm not a Psyker team player normally, so this replay is strewn with errors, and I actually lose Abaddon before the end, but I still think I put up a reasonably respectable score. Okay, that's been a longer video, so I'll maybe sign off there. I hope you enjoyed the showcase, and thank you as always to my Patreons and YouTube members for their support. Bye for now.